Welcome to my tutorial for Golden Axe on the PlayStation 2. This is a remake. It's a Sega Ages release in Japan only. It's a pretty shitty remake of the original Golden Axe. The music is very good. They redid the music, great soundtrack, and the game sounds really nice. But aside from that, it plays like shit compared to the original game. And I'll get into more details about why it plays like shit, since this will be a long video. So yeah, I recommend only picking the female with the sword, Tyrus Flare. She's the only character that I consider worth using. The dwarf with the axe seems pretty much unusable in this version of the game. He's super fucking slow. And if he does have any extra power in his hits, it's not worth it. He's extremely slow, and enemies will just charge you and destroy you while you're comboing another enemy. You won't have time to move. So, the male sword user, he has the longest reach. Which, that's great, but he's only about medium speed, and that extra little lack of speed makes it very easy to get hit while you're comboing enemies. So, for me, I found that the female character, Tyrus Flare, was the best choice. Now, there's going to be a lot of things that I figured out to exploit this game, which I think will make a huge difference if you're actually even going to fucking play this game or try to beat it. I know that this is not going to be a popular game, but I try to put tutorials out on games that gave me some trouble. This took around 2 hours and 41 minutes to beat. I got it on my third full attempt. By full attempt, I mean exhausting all my lives. You basically have 10 lives. You can't earn 1-ups. It's basically like one life is a whole credit, and you have 10 credits. So you want to try to survive as long as possible. Obviously, but so basically, I found a lot of tricks to really exploit this game. Anytime a rideable beast appears on screen, a dragon or any kind of rideable beast that you can actually get on and ride, which you'll do if you get close to it, you'll get magnetically sucked onto the beast and forced to ride it. And you cannot jump off as far as I can tell. You'll just get beat to death because the enemy will hit you, knock you off the dragon, you'll magnetate back onto it, get knocked off again, magnetate back onto the dragon until you die. Like I said, it's a shitty game. So, whenever I see a rideable dragon, I use magic to kill that shit. I recommend anytime you see one of those rideable dragons, just use your magic and waste it to kill it, because it'll save you from getting comboed to death by getting sucked into the dragon. If you play this game, you'll probably have it happen, and then you'll understand why I do that. It does look really wasteful. But in this game, there's something interesting that I didn't know until my third playthrough. I would have beat the game sooner, probably, had I known. Your magic actually replenishes in this game as you defeat enemies. So you don't have to rely on magic pickup pots like in the old games where you had to pick up these magic pots to replenish your magic. In this, you can replenish your magic just by killing enemies. It's that green bar, and when it fills to level 6, it's at maximum. Which means there's no sense in collecting magic pots unless you need them. So let them sit on the ground and just use them when you need them. Now, you see there I did a running attack. That time I did it intentionally, but most of the time I don't even bother to try to do it, and when I run, it's usually an accident, because this game is super fucking... it's very fucking picky with the inputs, because if you pretty much, if you try to use a D-pad, the game really plays like shit. You can do that. I use the analog here. And, when you try to double tap the analog stick in a direction, that's how you run. You double tap forward or whatever direction you want to run in, either left or right. You can't run down or up. But, you double tap it, but trying to double tap the analog with the longer throw distance of the analog stick makes it very hard to get a run animation to appear. And by that time, you'll probably get hit. So it's pretty much useless. So mainly what you're going to be doing in this game is you're just going to be walking slightly up or down to make enemies miss you. You want to lure them into charging you, and then walk up slowly or down and have them fly right past you. Now, by doing this, the idea is to try to line them up with where the other enemy is that you're fighting. So you want to try to group enemies into clusters as close together as possible. See another rideable dragon, so I'm probably going to use magic here again. I pretty much followed 2 rules during this playthrough, and I did way better. I didn't lose any continues until way later in the game. So what I did was, like I said, anytime a rideable dragon appears, use your magic. And then I made the rule a little bit, extend a little bit, that whenever I see floating magicians, I use the magic as well. Floating magicians come later in the game, and what those guys will do is they'll throw shit at you and lightning bolts and fire and shit like that. They can be very annoying, and they can be hard to hit because they are like traveling all around the screen. And while you're trying to hit them, you can get hit by other enemies and comboed, to death. So what I do is anytime I see a floating magician, I try to spawn out as many enemies as I can with the floating magicians, and then I just use my magic. See, I ran past those items, which is a food and some magic. The blue pots give you magic replenishment. The green guys give you food, which gives your health back. So, yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, when the magicians come out, I try to exploit that by using the magic whenever they come out. It works in two ways. When you use magic on a magician, magicians drop magic pots as well. So you'll get some of your magic back. So, the trick is to try to chain together magicians. So you can chain your magic together. Like a combo, pretty much. You can lure out the extra enemies with the magicians, use whatever magic you have, then grab the pots that the magicians drop, try to lure out some more magicians, use the magic again. And I've actually done this on bosses, which you'll see me do. I kind of was just living off of magicians instead of trying to hit the boss with my sword, and take more risk. I did it safer by just chaining together magicians. And you'll see what I mean. If that wasn't clear, I think you'll understand when you see the gameplay. Now there's a garden gnome that tries to steal some panties in this scene, but luckily nothing bad happened. It all worked out. It all fucking worked out. In the Genesis version, of course, you'd be able to play this scene and collect the magic pots and the meat to heal yourself. But in this, there is no such bonus stage. I guess it was just easier to, cut that out of the game, along with good gameplay. But, yeah, so now when you throw enemies, you cannot throw enemies into other enemies like in the Genesis version. So you can't even use your throw in a tactical way. The only way you can use your throw, the throw has one use. If you can use it consistently, you can use it it has invincibility frames. So if you're picking up an enemy just as an enemy tries to kick you or something, you won't get hit. But I don't even know how to do the throw. I never bothered to figure out how exactly I was doing it. You probably approach the enemy when it's on its knees or something, when you're hitting it, and then maybe you can throw it, but I'm not even sure. Like I said, this game plays really fucking bad. Sometimes your character will keep reaching like it's trying to throw the enemy, but it doesn't even do it, and you get hit. This game has a lot of glitchy shit. It's way less, it plays way less cleaner than the Genesis version, obviously. So, I mean, everything is sacrificed in the gameplay department. So, yeah. See, I didn't get hit because I was throwing the enemy. So if you could time that right, you could avoid damage. But, I mean, it's a lot easier to just dodge the guys normally than do that, I think. But, yeah, as you can see, the main thing I'm doing here is, I'm comboing the guys, but what I'm doing is I'm staggering the hits that I do to the enemy. So I'm not just mashing the button and comboing the enemy to death. A lot of times what I'm doing is I'm tapping the sword button, which is X, by the way. So and there's another, if you press square, you'll do like a backswing type of sword move that's almost useless. Also, jumping attacks in this game will get you killed because if you jump, you should almost never jump in this game unless there's no enemies around. Because when you jump, the landing animation takes really fucking long. You squat down for a moment when you land from a jump, and you'll get fucking raped if you do that shit. So, I don't recommend jumping at all unless you have to. I try never to leave the ground most of the time. But, yeah, so what else? Yeah, so see, I stagger my hits a lot of times where I just tap the sword swing button. Like just tap it slowly. Tap, 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 like that. And the reason I do that is because I can hit the enemy one hit at a time, and I don't get stuck in a combo. So I can get out of it real fast and move up or down to have the running enemies miss me. And once the running enemies miss me, I can group them together and hit them all as a crowd. See, in this game, unlike the original, you can hit huge crowds of enemies all at once because if you get close enough to them, you can smash like 4 or 5 enemies at once. and combo them all at the same time. That's the most efficient way to play. So I always try to group all the enemies together. It's one of the main crowd control techniques I use. If you're familiar with difficult beat 'em ups, then you'll be familiar with all this crowd control type of shit. But yeah, it works very well in this game. What I try to do with the green gnomes that run around with the meat is I try to lure them so that they run around where I'm at, and I try to lure them around the other enemies. So I can be comboing them and knocking the meat out of them while I'm killing the enemies at the same time. Instead of doing two different tasks, I'm doing them both together at the same time. It saves a lot of time, and it leaves you less vulnerable. But yeah, once I figured out some of these exploits, I mean, I like I said, I didn't lose a credit until late in the game. I was able to survive. See, another rideable dragon. Use that fucking magic. It's kind of amusing how, a rideable dragon that's supposed to be helpful to you is something that you want to kill in this game. Unlike the Genesis one where the dragons were pretty useful, you could pull a lot of bullshit with them. But in this game, if you do get on a rideable dragon, it has, it's hard to aim and line up. It's slow animations. You're likely to get knocked off of it. It hurts you a lot more than it helps you, so I recommend killing them. Like I said, you'll see, if you play this game, you'll see why it's worth killing the dragons, because you just get sucked onto them. Even if you're not even that close to them, you start to get magnetized. Yeah, it's really really badly made. But see, I'm getting the meat to come out while I'm fighting these guys, so I have it available. The meat does stay on the ground. The food, like the apples and the meat, do stay on the ground for a while. But if you wait too long, they will disappear. The magic, I think, will disappear eventually too. So here you have your first boss fight. It's nothing difficult. They needed a cutscene for these two assholes. It's one of the enhancements of this great remake. Luckily, it doesn't have a huge story and really long cutscenes, so that would have made it even worse. So yeah, for these guys, you're going to use the same techniques you've been using. Just, group everybody together and start swinging on them. Just be aware of these running guys. I used my magic because I was almost about to get hit by that running asshole. And like I've been saying, my first two attempts at this game, I thought I had to be real conservative with magic and save it for bosses and shit like that. But in this game, no. Use your magic pretty frequently because it replenishes with every enemy you defeat. Just by knowing that, you're going to do much, much better than I did on my first two attempts, most likely. As long as you're decent at these types of games. But yeah, that's it for that. Some magic really damages the bosses a lot when you have a lot of magic. Like the higher level the magic is, like see it says level 2, the higher level it is, it maxes out at 6. So don't grab any more magic if you have 6, but the higher it is, the more damage it does, just like the original games. So if you can plan out your magic use tactically, you can even plan it even better, where if you know that there's going to be some gnomes that show up to give you more magic, you could, use it right before they show up. I mean, there's definitely even better ways you can use it. But I had like I said, I had a very simple rule, and I didn't have the game memorized. And I had a very simple rule of just whenever a rideable dragon appears, I use magic. Whenever floating magicians appear, I use magic, and that's pretty much, that's the basis of what the basics of what I really tried to do with that. Of course, there was some, I make little tweaks on the fly, but I mean, that was the general idea, and it pretty much carried me through the game. See, I stagger my hits there so that this guy will come and charge in, and then I just move up or down, either one, and the guy will fly past you, and then you can combo them together. See, watch again. I think I got it again. I'm always keeping an eye on the guy. Well, no, I guess I didn't get it that time. Now, sometimes you can also interrupt the guys. When they're running at you, you can hit them with your sword, and it'll stop them dead in their tracks, and you can combo them to death. It's a little hard to time, but it's something to keep in mind. See, now the bullshit was starting to occur with the dragons again, so I was like, fuck all that. And you'll see at one point in the game, I even use a lot of magic, like a full max 6 magic on a single lone dragon with no other enemies. And as you know, those are rideable dragons, so they don't attack you, but I killed that shit immediately. Because I had enough with the little bullshit with the dragons in this game. So, you can bypass bullshit if you have some strategies that you always stick by instead of wasting time taking damage and trying to consider, should I use it, and this and that. Don't even consider it. Just use magic, as I said, whenever those two things occur, a rideable dragon or a floating magician. If you do that, you'll be pretty good. Now, with the floating magicians, and even with the rideable dragons, it's always good to maybe move the screen a bit if you can. Just don't get near the dragon. Just stay away from it so you don't get sucked in. Because you do not want to get on the dragon. You'll take unnecessary damage probably by getting knocked off of it anyway, and you may get stuck in a loop that kills you. So it's always good to try to spawn as many enemies on screen as possible when you use your magic to get maximum damage out of it. Which is just basic common sense with these games, but it's all about budgeting your, what's available to you, all your different strategies that you can use, and that's how you can be efficient at these games. Not grabbing health when you have a full health bar, obviously, and, not just collecting it for no reason, but, leave it on the ground until you need it. If there's meat, you'll stay alive a lot longer. Also, keep in mind that since you regenerate magic with every enemy you kill, a lot of times using a max 6 magic, it's not going to take that long for you to get it back up to 6 again. See another rideable dragon, so that's the routine now with those. But yeah, you think, using a level 6 magic, you're not going to get it refilled for a while back to level 6, but that's not the case in this game, so it's not like you're not going to have magic. You get a lot of magic in this game. I didn't realize that, like I said, until the third playthrough, so don't worry about saving that magic. You use it to get out of bad situations where you're surrounded, or, like I said, if a dragon shows up, a rideable dragon, shit like that. Even if you get hit by one combo and you're kind of stuck and you think you might get comboed again, fuck it, just use the magic. Just get out of that situation. If you keep those little rules in mind with the magic, I think you'll get far in this game easily. You should be able to beat it. That was really the main thing that I ended up incorporating and made the game so much easier. I had so many continues left at the end of the game that I was surprised because I thought I was maybe barely going to get through it or maybe not even beat the game. After trying it twice yesterday, full attempts, for about 2 hours, I was kind of frustrated. I was playing other games too, so that wasn't the only thing I played, but it was kind of the end of my playing games for the day. But I was kind of frustrated. I was like, I don't really feel like playing this shit again because after the fake last boss, you have this skeleton pit with magicians that's super annoying if you don't think of it strategically. Like the strategy I found makes it easy, but if you don't do that, then you could have a hard time with that shit and drain. Because what happens is if you fall in the pit, you lose an entire credit. So that's really annoying. Luckily, that's the only platforming scene in the game, really. So I don't think there's any other gaps that you have to jump across. So, like I said, it's easy, but the thing is, it's so easy to run. If you're trying to walk carefully and step carefully, don't do that too much, because if you're tapping the analog stick, there's a good fucking chance that you're just going to run for no reason and run right off the cliff. And that's happened to me several times. So that's the most dangerous thing about that area. But that's going to be a little bit later. So yeah, it's going to be a lot more of the same strategy again and again and again with, for about an hour. I mean, that's what most of the game is. Group enemies together, beat the shit out of them, and stagger your hits if there's guys behind you. You always want to have all the enemies in front of you if you can. Because if they try to charge you at close range, you can usually stop them dead in their tracks if you're still swinging. But if guys are behind you like that, that's what happens. You get nailed. They're very fast, even from across the screen. So now, normally that wouldn't be a problem in the old Golden Axe. I mean, if a guy charged you, you just move up or down, and it's easy to dodge them. But look how fucking slow she walks. All the characters walk incredibly slow. She may be the fastest one, but she walks very fucking slow. So see how slow I have to walk to dodge that? It's not like I can get out of the way quickly. So you got to be walking away kind of early to get to dodge those. It's a little bit of a tricky timing. And I miss it a lot. You see, I get nailed all the time. Even when I know it's coming, it's just, there's only so much I can do with a game that plays this bad. I mean, if I wanted to really refine, I'd have to obviously put more time into this game. But, I had enough of this. I don't believe there's any difficulty settings in this game either. So once you beat it, you're done. I mean, you can play it again if you want to beat it without losing a continue or something like that. But, there's no other real incentive I'm not sure why you'd want to play the shit out of this game anyway. So yeah, kill the dragons always. See, that guy tried to charge. I was already walking down kind of early. I was anticipating that he was going to do that shit. That's mostly what far side enemies do. They wait and then eventually they will charge in. So always keep an eye on them. You want to have one eye on the other, on the other fucking guy. Very important cutscenes, in case you didn't understand that that you were inside of a I don't know where the fuck you are, but I don't know. It explains a lot though. It's very important. Yeah, so like usual, get your food and shit while you're fighting the enemies so you don't take extra damage. Because the damage is definitely cumulative. Sometimes you don't have, any healing items available for, a long time. So you try to group them all together. Another thing to keep in mind is for survival and not wasting credits is, if you can survive the level with even a slither of health left, you always get all your health back on the next level. So, see, I was able to dodge that and group all these guys together. Sometimes it goes well. See, the throw saved me there. The animation from the throw allowed me to avoid damage. And then they ended up being grouped together. So, you could try to time it like that, but I don't even bother with throws intentionally. It just happens sometimes. So, yeah, I have maximum magic now, so I didn't bother picking up the pot. And, because I wasn't sure. I might, I figured maybe I'll use magic, but we'll see. I didn't remember the arrangements of enemies, so I didn't know how many enemies were left or anything. But the strategies are not too complicated. But yeah, here I was getting a lot of good dodges. I was able to do it a bunch of times and not get nailed. Yeah, this game can be weird. Sometimes you get like stuck on things when you're trying to move, and the hit detection is kind of weird sometimes. It's got a lot of problems. Like I said, it's very easy to run on accident. And when you want to use a running attack, it's like pretty much impossible to do on a fast, consistent basis, because of the analog stick has a much longer throw distance. So double tapping that doesn't really make a lot of sense. You could use the D-pad though, but that seemed to play even worse than the analog. So you got trade-offs with either control method. I was using an original PS2 controller on the emulation this time, the emulation machine. And reason being for that is because I got another Xbox One Elite version 2 controller. I've been going through the version 1s with the rubber peeling off and the bumpers breaking. And now version 2, I just had one break. The analog stick, it just stopped registering the up direction. So I got another Elite version 2 controller. I got warranties on them at Best Buy, so I can just I got to pay $40 each time one breaks, but I can keep swapping the warranties out. But the problem is the new Elite version 2 doesn't have Windows 7 compatibility. There's no driver to download for it. So hopefully that gets patched soon. I'd like to use the Elite controller again on the emulation PC. It was nice for PlayStation 1, PS2, all the more modern 3D types of games. It worked great for a lot of that. But the regular PS2 controller is still a great controller, so it's not too big of a deal. Though the D-pad is kind of shitty. But, most PS2 games don't use that. I have another controller I use for, if I'm using D-pad, another PS2 controller. It's a Neo Geo SNK PlayStation 2 controller based off of the Neo Geo CD controller. It has an amazing micro switch, like directional. It's kind of like a mix between a thumbstick and like an arcade joystick. It's awesome for fighting games. So for fighting games, I'll probably swap out that controller. Yeah, so now for this, we have new enemies that appear. We got the skeletons. And of course, this game is very, mundane and boring, so there's no, pits to knock the skeletons into like the old games. There's really, no pits to knock enemies into except for maybe the one level with the magicians flying around in the pits later on. But the magicians float in the air, so you don't really knock them in the pits. But you can knock some of the enemies off the ledge near the end of that stage. But it's almost non-existent in this game, which is always a fun thing to knock enemies off ledges. But there's none of that here. My good friend Bob Rupples actually did a no damage run of the original Golden Axe on Genesis. He did it in segments, so it wasn't a straight through run. But he actually made all the enemies fall into the pits in one level. He knocked every enemy into a pit. But yeah, you won't be able to do any of that kind of shit in this game. You're just going to be fighting guys pretty much in the same way and trying to crowd them together and smash them. Now, you see how I get in front of the enemies? I try to always stay in front of the enemies. I really don't like when there's an enemy on my left and another enemy on my right. Being in the middle is the worst, in these kind of games. Especially this game, because your movement sucks. It's shit. So, yeah, try to walk around these guys and get it so that, you have a wide range with your sword, though, so you can easily, be between two guys and just beat the shit out of both of them. It's a weird hit detection. I guess in favor of the player, that's one area in this game that is in favor of you. You do have a wide range to strike with. So, it's not a horrible as a game. As a beat-em-up, it's a mediocre beat-em-up. As a port of the Golden Axe original, it's shit because that was such a great game. But this does have the redone version of the music is great and the sound effects are great, but I like the screams better in the original. But yeah, a lot of the sound effects and stuff are great in the music, but the music was pretty much the highlight of this game. This version of the game. The Genesis music is probably still more classic to me, so more nostalgic, so I probably like that better. But it can be argued that this music is better. It's improved, maybe, So yeah, I was getting comboed. It was getting kind of nasty over there, so I used my magic. I didn't want to, if you wait too long, you end up losing a life. You don't want to lose a life because a whole life is a lot to work with, especially with some of the bosses. I was also able to exploit the fake final boss, the first Death Adder. When he appears, the game acts like it's the final boss, but it's just an impersonator, basically. And then you have to fight the final boss, which is pretty much the same guy again, but with more enemies surrounding him. Just like the original. But, yeah, so Death Adder, I was actually able to get him into some kind of loop where he couldn't get out. And I beat the shit out of him. I don't know if I'd be able to duplicate that again because I never tried it again. This was probably the last time I'll play through this game. But I did get it on this playthrough, so I will show that. You could try to duplicate that with the positioning and try to match that and see if it works. Use save and load state and practice it with that positioning. And, you can make the game easier for you that way. Because that guy can waste, guys like that can waste a lot of continues. So getting him in an infinite loop and beating the shit out of him, an infinite combo is great. Also, I was able to position myself in such a way to where the helper that was trying to come out got stuck behind something. And because I stopped moving away, the guy he wasn't able to adjust his movement. And the guy got stuck, never came out. And I just beat the shit out of Death Adder. It was great. Very satisfying because, I was like I said, I thought I was going to maybe shut this game off, not go back to it. Then today I was like, fuck it, I'll give it another try. I'm kind of fresh today. So I was like, fuck it, I'll give it another shot, see what happens. And I started thinking about it, more strategically. I was like, my magic is coming back. Okay, I could use that. I could also have some rules I try this time where, whenever the rideable dragons appear, I just kill them and use the magic. At the same time trying to get as many enemies to spawn as possible, obviously. And then I was like, that worked great for the dragons. Let me try doing this on the magicians. Anytime I see these fucking stupid magicians, I'm going to use my magic. And, I just took the thought out of it. I didn't have to consider anything anymore. I just knew whenever I see these guys, that's my cue. Just use the magic. So, that's what I recommend. Now, I know that there's probably not even going to be one person that watches this video, but, it could be useful if somebody does check it. Sometimes it's interesting to reflect back on these tutorial videos. So yeah, pretty far in the game now. About halfway, a little bit more than halfway through. I believe the 7th stage is very long. Yeah, the 7th is the longest stage. This stage is not too hard, but you want to use the same strategies, that we've been using. And like I said, I did mention that the skeletons were the new enemy that appeared on the previous level, but I didn't say much about them because, the strategies are pretty much the same as you've been doing for the regular enemies. All the enemies are really not that much different from each other in the way that you deal with them. I mean, they look different, but most of them, even the boss-type enemies are similar to deal with for the most part. There are a few of them that can grab you and do a lot of damage if they grab you, but you can use a lot of the same button-mashing techniques that we've been using. And as I was saying, any kind of jumping attack, like jump and attack, is pretty much useless. In fact, I noticed a lot of times, at least with the male sword character, that a lot of times the move wouldn't even... I would do the inputs and the move wouldn't even occur on screen. So I don't know if that's a glitch or if there was slowdown on screen, but it happened all the time. To the point where I couldn't even get the move to trigger. And on top of that, even if you do get it to land, the jumping animation is ridiculous, especially recovering from landing a jump. I mean, if you miss, you'll get destroyed. So, yeah, don't use jumping attacks. Just the only thing you really need to use is your X sword attack, and just try to get your positioning right and group guys together. In the other games, there was a regular jump attack, and there was a great move, a running down thrust, jumping down thrust. I don't think that's in this game at all. But if it is, it would probably be complete shit. So you can't even throw enemies at each other. There's that was part of the strategy in the original game. You could group enemies together and throw them at each other. Here I just decided to use this because there was these assholes on screen with the pots and stuff too. So when you see those around, you can just use it. You don't want to give enemies a lot of opportunity to group. If there's a lot of enemies on screen, you might want to thin them out with magic because they can easily get you in these combos. So it's better to play it safe and just use your magic because you get so much magic anyway, like I was saying. Without exploiting all the magic, this game would actually be quite hard because there's so much bullshit and bad control. See, I used the magic before I could even get sucked onto that dragon. Because if I were to hit that guy and then he fell off the dragon, what happens next is I end up on the dragon, even though I don't want to be on it. The game's going to put me on the dragon, so I don't even bother trying to hit that guy off the dragon. That's another thing when guys are riding dragons. Use your magic before they even get to you, because if you try to attack them while they're on the dragon, there's a good chance that you'll knock them off the dragon and then you'll end up on the dragon. And as I've explained, once you end up on that dragon, you'll probably get comboed to death because you'll keep getting back on it when you get knocked off. Endless loop. So yeah, always stick by that rule. Anytime you see the dragon, no matter how wasteful it seems, just use the magic. Here a lot of assholes start running in and causing problems. The game does get more aggressive with the assholes surrounding you. Enemies do end up taking more hits too. Like in the first stage, I think enemies take 3 hits. Now the dwarf, enemies take 3 hits with both the woman and the male character in the first stage. The dwarf might be able to kill guys with 2 hits or something like that, but I'm not even sure if that's the case. But he's so fucking slow. So do not use the dwarf. I mean, unless you want to take it like a challenge and make the game really hard. Though, if you rely heavily on magic, with the dwarf, you can probably pace yourself with him and make it manageable. But, if you're looking to make the game harder, then use the dwarf. But yeah, it's not really a good type of difficulty. Yeah, I was taking a lot of damage there, so I was like, fuck it, let me just use this shit, get these assholes off me. But you can see I haven't lost a continue yet. I think I survived for a while before I lose my first continue. I was able to extend it for a pretty long time. See, I'm comboing these guys together, including the smaller guy. I let him run in there. Now, unfortunately, that bitch got me, so... Yeah, so I wasted my first continue. If she wouldn't have got that hit in, I probably would have been able to finish it off. But I was low health. But if you're losing a continue more than halfway into the game, then you're in good shape. There's only like maybe 19 minutes or 18 minutes, 17 minutes left of the game, so 35 minutes in and you lose a continue, it's not going to be too bad. I think with these tricks, it should be pretty easy for most people to do it. The one thing that may require practice is, the crowd control and luring the guys to jump. But you can see I missed it a lot too, and I still did well. These guys do take a lot of hits, but they're really not hard. Also remember that killing the boss enemies, in this case these two large knights, it's usually the largest guys. A lot of levels just end when you kill like certain regular enemies, but the ones with the bosses, remember, if you kill the bosses, the level ends. So ignore the regular enemies as much as possible and try to hit them when they're grouped in with the bosses, so that you're hitting the boss and the regular enemies at the same time. That's the best way to do it. Because every time you strike a non-boss enemy, you're just wasting time and potentially could take damage. You really only need to kill the bosses. Yeah, now this is when the magicians appear. Now at first I didn't have the idea of using magic every time the magicians appear, but you'll see I started to think like, why not do that? Because they appear a lot. So I was thinking, you know what? It came to me and I was like, let me just use my magic whenever I see them. So eventually I will start doing that. So yeah, you could have used your magic as soon as that asshole appeared, and try to wait till there's some other enemies on screen too, like I said. We're going to modify that strategy slightly when we kill the magicians in the next stage. We're going to make sure that when we kill the magicians, you want to make sure they're above a platform and not in a pit. And the reason for that is you want them to drop the magic so that you can grab it and chain it and kill more magicians. So that's going to be part of the strategy. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to try to grab as much magic as you can on the next stage. So yeah, I haven't started doing that trick yet, but you'll see me do that. I think this is where I said, fuck it. Let me just use it whenever I see these assholes. Because like I said, it was a great technique. They got me through most of the game for the rideable dragons. So, why not do it here since they appear so often? Usually you have at least level 1 magic because you're constantly killing enemies and you get magic for killing enemies. So what that means is that every time you see the magicians, you should at least have level 1 magic. And the lowest level magic pretty much always kills these regular magicians. There's some that might be able to live a little bit longer later on, but for the most part, magic will always kill all the magicians. So it saves you a lot of time because it's a pain in the ass to chase them around while they're floating. And you're walking super slow. And you got to try to hit them while they're floating around. They're shooting projectiles at you, so. And they're lighting the ground up so that if you stay on the ground too long, you get nailed, so. You'll save yourself a lot of frustration just by using it whenever they appear. Now, a good way to stay on top of when the magicians appear is read those health bars. See those health bars that have the names? Whenever you see magician appear in those health bars, see it says soldier and Zubaroko, whatever the fuck that is. When the magicians appear, it'll say magician. So whenever you see that health bar appear, get ready to use your magic. Try to spawn some more enemies by moving the screen to the right. Try to get more enemies to appear, but then use it and clear out those magicians. See, 2 magicians are now showing up. So here we use the magic. And this has the added benefit of killing the magicians and making them drop more magic. And then, of course, damaging or killing the other enemies on screen. So now we got more magicians, see? See how this works? So now we use it again. And it just becomes an abusive ritual, which you'll see. You'll be able to really fucking destroy the game if you take these strategies in. I mean, I'm even doing damage to the mid-boss type of guy, the large knight. Because because magicians keep spawning in the area. So since magicians keep appearing, that means we can do unlimited magic, basically. As long as there's a magician around, we can keep casting magic and getting more magic. So this chain is going to be extremely useful. Now here I'm just kind of fighting and fucking around a little bit, seeing what I could do without magic. But then I was starting to take some damage. I was about to get hit again. So I use it here. When you have level 6 magic, you use all the magic at once. But if it's like level 1 or 3 or 2, it seems like you only use one piece of the magic. So you can get multiple casts out of that. But you'll see how that works. It's not anything you really need to understand too well. As long as you see magic level 1, it means you have magic to use. So in that green bar. And you could easily use magic too when those assholes appear with the pots and the food. I'm not sure if the magic damages them. It may. But yeah, another magician appeared. There was only one other soldier, but yeah, it doesn't matter. As long as a magician appears, then you know it's time to use that magic. We have a lone soldier here. I wasn't scrolling the screen because I just wanted to deal with just that one guy. Now here comes a magician. Now I'm moving the screen right so I can get more enemies to spawn on screen. See, now we got 4 enemies on screen, including 2 magicians. So the 2 magicians will be insta-killed as they die from pretty much any level of magic on this stage. And now we have 2 more magics to add to the collection. And, you know, see if more enemies come in, if it gets kind of a little aggressive. Especially if magicians appear again. I like to save it for whenever the magicians appear most of the time. In this stage, anyway. If I don't see a magician, then I'll try not to use the magic and try to just fight normally. But, you know, unless my health is really low, then I might not risk it. But here I take it kind of slow so that I can try to take on the enemies in different, you know, without having them too close to me. Sometimes it's difficult to get them grouped together. Sometimes you got to kind of isolate them a little bit and work on them separately. So yeah, magicians appear again. So now we get 3 enemies damaged by this magic, and that did a lot of damage. So I guess at level 4 she uses 3 magic levels at once, because that's what just happened. But see, sometimes those assholes, that's one move that they have that's dangerous that the regular enemies don't have, is that they can spear you and throw you. Most of the time you're just beating the shit out of them, so you probably won't really notice that they have other moves. You know, but try to get them to miss in their charge, you know, and as usual. So now we got another magician, so you know what that means. And we damaged the other 2 enemies pretty heavily, I think. Yeah, and just grab the pots. And see, shit's getting a little wild here, so it may be time soon for me to use it again. But I guess I tried to hold out a little bit. I was 1 combo away from being killed there, which would have sucked. But I do end up dying anyway towards the end. I mean, we're getting far now at this point, so it wouldn't be the end of the world to lose a continue. I do lose several continues. I think I had 3 continues left or something like that. So I probably ended up using like 7 continues, but I didn't count. It does get sloppier toward the end. I didn't practice the end as much as I had, you know, practiced some of the earlier parts, but, you know, I could have refined it. I think 1 CC would be pretty doable with some planning, 1 credit. But I don't really do a lot of 1 CC runs. I have done a few on the channel, like Double Dragon for arcade. You know, and a few others. Several on console, just been like where I didn't waste any continues, but that wasn't really planned most of the time. It was just I just did well. I probably over practiced some games like Gym Power for Super Nintendo. I ended up pretty much over practicing a lot of it. But then yet again, there were parts that I under practiced, so it was kind of a mix. That game was a bitch to beat. I did a tutorial on that one as well, and that was a 1 credit run, but that was just how it ended up. So yeah, I was getting kind of annoyed here. These guys seemed to strike a lot faster and aggressively, and they were causing me some problems. So it was time to end that situation. I may not survive this without losing a continue here. This is getting a little wild. I think I may have wasted a continue at the end, but here I'm just using magic because I have it, and the guys were starting to cause, you know, these guys are getting aggressive. I try to group them together, but these guys can be dangerous altogether. So yeah, I wasted a continue here. But at this point I had plenty to spare, so I was in good shape. As you can see, there's like 8 more continues or something, as you can see on that screen. It shows you how many continues you have left. You have 10. there's nothing that you can adjust in options menu as far as the gameplay. So now, yeah, I see another magician. The reason I didn't cast it immediately is because when you get knocked down and get back up and you mash the magic button, which is triangle, by the way, I should have mentioned that. When you hit that button, it won't always respond because it takes long for you to stand back up. It's really shitty with the animations. So yeah, here I'm chaining magics by grabbing the pots off the magicians and then waiting for another magician to spawn and then casting it again. That's the technique I was talking about earlier. You're going to see me do that on bosses. It's a very effective technique. See, the magician comes back. I couldn't hit him easily, so I used magic again to kill him. And then he's going to drop another magic pot, obviously, and then I'm going to grab that, and then I can use the magic again when another magician appears. Or I don't have to wait for the other magician to appear. You know, you can use it as you see fit. This guy was about to die, so I didn't need to wait anymore. Just end that shit. All right, so now this is going to be an interesting strategy, and I think this is going to make it easy for most people. Oh, never mind. This is the Death Adder fight. Well, this too, I have a good strategy for this too, but I don't know how easy it is to duplicate. But I'll discuss that in a moment. You'll see. I don't think there's much I really need to say. But initially, you have these two assholes helping out Death Adder, and they can cause a problem. So if you can, use some of your magic and try to thin those guys out, because if you can get rid of them, it makes the Death Adder fight much easier. So you could even fight them separately if you want. I try to line them up with Death Adder so I can damage him at the same time. But like I said, shit does start getting kind of sloppy towards the end of the game. I think I did pretty decent on this fight, though. I don't know if I wasted a continue on this fight. Because look what I did. No, actually, I think I beat it without wasting a continue. See, because look at the positioning I got here. Death Adder cannot get out of this combo. See? I got the positioning perfect with this somehow. I was able to combo the shit out of him, even though it took a while. I even had magic to spare that I could have been using. I was hitting him the wrong way there, but it was still getting it in. So the positioning was not too difficult to get, but for some reason he just couldn't get out of this. Now maybe normally he's just easy to beat the shit out of. Maybe that's how he is. Because usually I think he relies on his helper, so he might be easy to combo normally. I think he's so slow at moving and attacking. And you see his other little friend got stuck on an object or some shit, so he wasn't able to help in the fight at all. So if you can manipulate the game like that, you can maybe get the guy stuck, like I did there. I mean, as you can see, it is possible to do, and you can get Death Adder stuck in that, infinite combo. I was pretty much just mashing the sword button. I wasn't timing it, any specific way, aside from hitting him when he gets up. So there was nothing complicated, really, about it. So I think it wouldn't be too hard to duplicate something similar to that. Now for this, be very careful when you're walking forward with the analog stick not to double tap it, or you'll run off the edge. Very dangerous. Because you're trying to walk carefully so you don't overstep, because the platforming sucks. But just be careful. Now I'm using the same technique here that we've been using, except this time I'm using magic on magicians, but I'm trying to do it when they're floating over a ledge. That's so I can collect the magic pots. Otherwise they'll just fall in the lava. Now here I think it was kind of sloppy, because I forgot about those two guys that spawn. It's usually better to kill those guys before you cross that gap. But, I forgot about it. I wasn't thinking. But yeah, see, we're going to be using magic heavily. And this makes this part very easy. If you don't do this, this part can be a bitch. Because you'll get knocked off, thrown. If you fall in the lava, instant death. Lose a whole credit. So, I think these guys, some of these magicians may take 2 magics to kill. But it's not a big deal. Just use it and pick up the ones that you can get. See, I carefully walk here because it's so sloppy the way the game controls. It's very easy to run. And if you run, you're pretty much dead. So yeah, same tactic here, deal with the skeletons. Be careful not to move too far up or down because you easily fall. If you go too far up, you fall off that narrow little ledge. So be careful with how you're walking. If the enemies hit you, remember, they're just going to knock you left or right, so you'll probably be okay. They're not going to knock you up or down off the ledge, so don't be too worried about that. Just, focus on walking slowly across these areas. And that was the last platforming segment, so you don't have to worry about any more pits or anything like that. So yeah, for this, I tried to group all the enemies together and knock which ones I could in the pit and just have them all, in front of me. Now these guys got a little aggressive. I think I got fucked here unexpectedly. See, that guy got behind me and threw me in the lava. So for that part, you may lose a life or something on that if you get sloppy there. But I couldn't get behind the guy because there's very little room to work with in this area. So, you know, it was kind of almost like a random thing. It would have been hard to avoid. I mean, there's probably a 50% chance that it wouldn't happen. But yeah, I'm sure I could have used my magic. I probably could have negated it. But, you know, I had so many extra, continues. This part, we're going to do the same shit. Because magicians constantly, seem to infinitely spawn into the arena as you're fighting the bulls. The 2 Minotauros are the guys that you want to kill. If you kill both of them, you end the level. So, you can ignore all the other enemies if you want. Or just group them all together. Which is mainly what I recommend doing. You never really want to ignore an enemy completely, but, keep an eye on it. But yeah, so you see these magicians popping in. So, as soon as I can get a magic pot, see, now I got one. And I used it because now I'm going to kill the magician. And I'm going to do damage to everyone, including the Minotaurs. So you can kind of just ignore the Minotaurs and focus on stealing the magician pots and just casting magic and chaining it. Because see, another magician came in. They just keep coming. So if you want to play it really safe, you don't even have to fight the Minotaurs with your sword. You can just focus on magicians. Here I got a little sloppy. I ended up dying, but I mean, for the most part, it was a pretty clean level. Considering how shitty the game plays. Yeah, so now we're on the final boss. Now, the final boss is really not much harder than the fake Death Adder. I mean, there seems to be... I think there's more enemies and shit like that, but you can group a lot of them together. I wasn't able to do an infinite combo on him or anything, and I ended up wasting a few continues, so he can be tough. But hopefully, if you're using my strategies, you'll have, 6 or 7, maybe 5 continues left at this point, which is plenty. Even if you fuck up a lot, it's plenty of continues to eventually get enough damage on him to kill him. The idea is to try to get here with several continues. That's the best way to play this, unless you just practice it and get good at the fight. You can do that too, of course. I didn't practice this fight at all. I think I tried it briefly, but yeah, I didn't really practice it. So, I was just relying on the basic strategies. There's not much to know about the fight. I mean, it's kind of like the same shit you've been doing. There's just a lot of enemies showing up. So, but luckily there's magicians that show up, so you know what that means. You get to get more free magic and free damage on the final boss and all the enemies, so, Now, see, the magic didn't kill the magician. I think he can take a few magics. I think he's a stronger magician, but still. I think if you take him out eventually, you may get some free magic. I don't know if I ever got magic off of him, though. I can't remember, but I was just focusing on the main boss because I knew I had plenty of credits to burn. See, I still had 5 continues left. So, I had a lot of shit to burn. I was focusing on the magician because I was hoping he was going to drop some magic, but the guy didn't drop any magic, so some of them may not even drop magic. But you still get magic anyway because, as you kill enemies, you get your magic replenished. So you got a decent amount. Now I wanted to cast the magic again here, or no, not here actually. I think there was a time where I was close to beating it, but when I was trying to cast the magic, it didn't work because the game's very unresponsive. So I think I lose another credit. See? Oh no, not maybe. I think it's around here. See, watch what happens. I mean, it's expected to happen, but I was mashing triangle, but I remember, the magic didn't happen, and then I was getting hit, I think, because I was trying to hit the magic button, but it just wasn't working. But anyway, as soon as I get back up, I finish him off with a final magic. And yeah, that's it. As long as you do that, those strategies, which is really, most of the strategies are pretty simple. The main thing that would be hard to learn if you're not familiar with these games or, is the crowd control stuff, like luring the guys out to jump and try to crowd them all together. That might be more of a skill thing that takes some practice, but there's a definite technique to it. And I think for a lot of players it'll be pretty easy to pull that off consistently, so that's going to make things much more efficient, grouping everyone together. And then, of course, chaining all your magic at the right times. The riding dragons and magicians, and trying to link it all together by, chaining magician kills. So, yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions.